We didn't cut up because we were not pals. We just broke up out of sheer boredom, and tedium creates anxiety. For a long time, fanatics have celebrated John Lennon and Paul McCartney as halves of one of the finest songwriting duos in records. Yet at the back of the adoration and acclaim were two actual guys, related by a bond that became as a good deal about brotherhood as it turned into approximately rivalry. Where there was creative magic, there have been also tensions that simmered, threatening to rip them apart for almost 1/2 a decade. When they cut up, all right, and who knows who broke, All and Sundry has a concept I recognize. Who broke it up? John. It appeared inevitable that they might deliver their feud to the grave, had been it now not for a well-timed reconciliation rapidly earlier than Lennon's tragic assassination. But before his premature death, John Lennon spoke up approximately Paul McCartney, offering fascination and stunning revelations about the complex relationship among two stars, the genesis of a mythical partnership. On a modest summer day in Liverpool, a church fete came about in Woolton Village on July 6, 1957. A skiffle institution known as the Quarrymen, led by way of a 1612 antique John Lennon, finished on a makeshift level. It became hardly ever the stuff of stardom, simply an beginner band, unique in a nearby community. Wandering by way of threat into the scene was 1512 antique Paul McCartney, who arrived on his bicycle and decided to look at. In that apparently regular second, musical history modified its course. After the Quarrymen completed their set, a mutual friend, Ivan Vaughan, introduced McCartney to Lennon. Spotting a guitar nearby, McCartney played Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock with such ease that Lennon became intrigued. Despite handy as a one-year difference in age, Lennon, as the organization's leader, possessed an air of self-assurance that would intimidate his friends. Yet, McCartney's informal mastery of the device left an impression that might modify both of their lives. The connection was instantaneous. Two restless teens, passionate about track, every finding in the different a replicate in their personal ambition. They did no longer turn out to be worldwide idols overnight. The dynamic that sparked that day, however, fashioned the bedrock of what might quickly turn out to be the Beatles. Lennon invited McCartney to sign up for the Quarrymen, giving them a solid, innovative companion who complemented Lennon's uncooked strength and wit with a melodic sensibility, an unusual area for a young musician. Already in private, they commenced writing rudimentary songs, now and again one by one, every now and then collectively. They were forging a partnership that could later reshape popular tune globally. Before lengthy, McCartney brought another school pal, George Harrison, into the fold. Eventually, the band took form as the Beatles, with Pete Best, and later Ringo Starr, filling the drummer's seat. Though the institution dynamic was crucial, it became Lennon and McCartney's creative chemistry that propelled the Beatles' early fulfillment. Both worshipped the rock and roll pantheon: Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, and Little Richard. They wolfed those impacts and reconfigured them right into a sparkling, cutting-edge fashion. The bustling clubs of Hamburg provided them a crash course in performance and musicianship. After forging their stagecraft there, they electrified Liverpool's Cavern Club. Crowds returned domestic. By the time they struck the attention of supervisor Brian Epstein, the Lennon-McCartney duo changed into a well-honed songwriting engine. Fueled via commonplace aspirations and a fierce, innovative competition, they wrote fast and prolifically, matching every difference ideas chord for chord, lyric for lyric. Lennon's introspection and irreverence met McCartney's buoyant optimism and dad craftsmanship, resulting within the famous Lennon-McCartney logo. Often specifically within the early days, they composed eyeball to eyeball, as Lennon described it. If Lennon wrote a verse, McCartney might help polish the melody. If McCartney introduced a bridge, Lennon could steer its emotional tone. It changed into a synergy in which every made the other higher. Early hits like Love Me Do, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and She Loves You displayed not simply catchy hooks, but a fresh perspective. Four younger guys who wrote and accomplished with an honesty and strength that enthralled a technology. By 1963 to 64, the Beatles had emerged as a British sensation. Not long after, they conquered America, spearheading what the media dubbed the British invasion. Practically each Lennon-McCartney track soared at the charts. Unprecedented crowd reactions greeted them anywhere they went, making them icons of cutting-edge adolescent subculture. Their songs permeated radio stations worldwide, from The Wonder of All My Loving to the droll fringe of I'm a Loser, capturing the sector's creativeness. Lennon and McCartney recommended every other's Boom, although the pace and depth were relentless. The greater Lennon explored non-public introspection, the extra McCartney sharpened his melodic invention. If Lennon delivered something edgy like Norwegian Wood, McCartney countered with We Will Work It Out. If McCartney added in a smooth ballad like Yesterday, Lennon pursued alternative guidelines, together with In My Life. Critics and lovers lauded them as the many years defining songwriting duo. Though the Beatles stood at the pinnacle of tune stardom, internal and external pressures installed. Their diverging visions might soon manifest inside the studio and in public disputes, foreshadowing a breakup that might devastate tens of millions of fanatics and seed bitterness between Lennon and McCartney for years yet to come. Tensions and the breakup of the Beatles. The top-notch synergy that catapulted the Beatles into international renown also set them up for profound tension. As the 1960s wore on, Lennon and McCartney, alongside Harrison and Starr, ventured into greater experimental tactics, musical, private, and religious. Albums like Rubber Soul, Revolver, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band charted new paths in pop, but with each groundbreaking record, personal differences emerged. McCartney leaned into well-crafted melodies and meticulous manufacturing, even as Lennon, more and more influenced by using avant-garde art and later by his courting with Yoko Ono, driven for extra raw, introspective expression. During the classes for the White Album, 1968, the Fishers became unmistakable. The double album's eclectic song list featured extremes, from McCartney's Obla-Di Obla to Lennon's sound test Revolution 9. Band participants once in a while recorded separately. Producer George Martin located that the Beatles have been becoming four solo artists underneath one umbrella. The once seamless Lennon-McCartney brand become below pressure as each sought extra innovative autonomy. If clashing creative visions weren't sufficient, the group also suffered a sizable managerial disaster. Manager Brian Epstein, extensively considered the fifth Beatle, had died in 1967, leaving them to deal with commercial enterprise affairs on my own. Lennon, interested in the brash style of Alan Klein, wanted him to manipulate the band. McCartney argued for Lee Eastman, his father-in-law. This confrontation, Klein versus Eastman, became a fierce dividing line. In 1969 and into 1970, the economic chaos escalated. Legal disputes, together with a lawsuit initiated via McCartney to dissolve the Beatles' contractual partnerships, pitted the vintage pals towards every different. In interviews, each McCartney and Lennon expressed frustration, every blaming the alternative for the chaos. Fans who noticed the Beatles as an image of cohesion were stunned. How may want to the band that sang All You Need Is Love be disintegrating over conflicting contracts and control deals? In January 1969, the Beatles launched into the unwell-fated Get Back project, later retitled Let It Be, in which a movie crew documented their rehearsals and creative system. The idea became to go back to an uncooked fashion, free from overdubs, culminating in a stay-overall performance. But what the cameras captured was excruciating, a band slightly keeping together, with Lennon acting detached and fixated on Ono's constant presence. While McCartney valiantly tried to impose structure to salvage the album, Harrison felt overshadowed and in short cease. The Let It Be film and album underscored how far they drifted from the times of communal collaboration. Scenes display McCartney trying to rally all of us for a final positive performance, most effective to be met with Lennon's passivity and underlying resentments. Their interplay become now not symmetrical, and the commercial enterprise fights that raged outdoor the studio handiest compounded the tension internally. By 1970, Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and Starr had been efficiently on separate paths. The band's closing recorded album Abbey Road, 1969, retained moments of brilliance. However, behind the curtain, animosity simmered. Then McCartney launched his solo debut in April 1970, coinciding with a public declaration that the Beatles have been no greater. Lennon felt betrayed, insisting he had advised the others he changed into leaving first. The acrimony continued in their solo paintings. McCartney took diffused pictures at Lennon in Too Many People, criticizing what he perceived as Lennon-onos preachiness. Lennon retaliated with the savage, "How do you sleep?" mocking McCartney's music and belittling the liked "Yesterday." If Lovers Had was hoping for a quiet, dignified parting of approaches, they acquired the opposite. Private disputes were now fodder for fanatics and tabloids. By overdue 1970, the once seamless Beatles solidarity changed into officially dissolved. McCartney sued his bandmates to unfasten himself, culminating in a criminal labyrinth that lingered until 1975. Many fans felt the heartbreak, in my view, as though the soundtrack in their lives had unexpectedly ended on a discordant word. Lennon summarized it acerbically. "I started the band, I disbanded it. It's as easy as that." Reality became more complicated, of path. Tensions that commenced as minor cracks grew into irreconcilable breaks. The dissolution left behind four men facing new, innovative eras on my own. Yet simply underneath the general public feuds, the seeds of brotherhood nonetheless lay dormant. Time could reveal that possibly John and Paul in no way fully stopped being concerned for every different, no matter how sour the headlines became. While the narrative of antagonism ruled the media, private tales informed by way of buddies like Alice Cooper painted a distinct photo, one wherein Lennon fiercely defended McCartney behind closed doorways. The contradiction begs the question, did they surely hate each other? Or have been they feuding siblings who in no way ceased to like? The feud, a brotherly competition. From the out-of-doors, Lennon and McCartney's harsh exchanges seemed private and unyielding. Even as newspapers, magazines, and TV networks lapped up their feud, both men could at times mood their criticisms, admitting respect for every difference craft. McCartney claimed that the supposed vitriolic references in Ram have been genuinely minimal. Lennon might every so often let slip that McCartney had a knack for arrangement. However, these milder admissions frequently were given buried underneath more sensational feedback. Far from public prying eyes, the tale became greater nuanced. According to Alice Cooper, a part of a Hollywood vampires and jesting circle that blanketed Lennon, no person else changed into allowed to insult McCartney in Lennon's presence. If a person did, he would possibly bristle angrily and threaten physical retaliation. Cooper recounts that if you dared to trash McCartney, you risked a confrontation with Lennon. Similarly, if each person slandered Lennon in the front of McCartney, McCartney could go away the room. This at the back of closed doors loyalty shows a potent subtext. While the pair publicly tore every different down, neither tolerated strangers belittling the alternative.